Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Edgerton, Associate Counsel with the National Association of Realtors. Thank you so much for joining me today for our special live event, Cybercrime and Cybersecurity as it affects the real estate industry and the real estate professional. My goals today are really twofold. I want to give you some information about the cybercrime landscape now as it affects our industry, but my overreaching goal here is to leave you with some real-world tips and tricks and best practices that you can take back and implement into your companies so that you can protect yourselves and your clients from cybercrime. And to that end, we are actually going to start out today with me giving you a 100% surefire way that you can protect your computer from cybercrime. And what I am about to tell you works not just for computers, it works for tablets and mobile phones and any other device that can connect to the internet. So, step-by-step IT practice to protect yourself from cybercrime. First, close all programs on your computer. Power off your computer and unplug it. Carry your computer into your backyard, dig a hole in your backyard, pitch your computer into the hole, pour gasoline on the computer, and set your computer on fire. That is how you secure your computer 100% from cybercrime. The reality here is that perfect security simply does not exist. So what do? We implement best practices, we educate ourselves, and we stay vigilant. And that is what we're really going to be focused on today. The long and the short of it is nobody is safe from cybercrime. By 2019, the annual global cost of cybercrime is going to be an estimated $2.1 trillion. And that number does not by any means just represent large multinational companies or political organizations or all of the other things that we see in the headlines all the time. It is us. It is small to mid-sized companies. In 2015, 43% of all cyber attacks were leveraged at small to mid-sized companies. And when I say small to mid-sized, I mean 250 or less employees. It is a dangerous misconception to think I'm too small to bother with. Why? The cybercriminals know that small to mid-sized companies think that way and that they don't necessarily have the vigilance or the tools to protect themselves. So that's what I'm giving you today. That's what we're going to be focused on. If a small to mid-sized company does get hit by cybercrime, the price tag is an estimated $690,000. That is devastating. What is that money correlated with? In some cases, direct theft of funds from fraud or scams or extortion, which we're going to be going into some detail about. In other cases, we're talking about the loss of critical or sensitive or confidential data, which is also financially devastating, business disruption and downtime, system cleanup and data program recovery, post-breach IT and business consultation fees, which can be very steep, and worst of all, reputational damage to your business. And many times that is just something that you cannot recover from. The truth is that cybercriminals love our industry. They love real estate. We are an industry made up of small to mid-sized companies. You are busy professionals focused on your clients and your deals, traveling in cars, working off of multiple devices. And when it comes time to a transaction, you've got multiple separate players. You've got the buyer, you've got the seller, you've got the buyer's agent, the seller's agent, the escrow guys, the lawyer guys, the mortgage guys, the brokers, the banks. And all of these different individuals and entities are sending information constantly back and forth through cyberspace. These guys want that information. And then, when it comes time to close a transaction, you are also dealing with a large sum of money. These bad guys also want that. So, let's take a step back. So far, I've really been sort of talking about the defensive side of this. You have to have good security or you're going to get sued. You have to have good security to protect your transactions from devastation. But there's another element here that I want you guys to be thinking about as we go through these best practices, which is good security is a powerful way to distinguish yourself from the competition. It's a way to rise above the fray in this very competitive industry. Not all real estate professionals out there understand good security. But you are not just any old real estate professional, you are a realtor. And realtors secure it. We've even got a hashtag going, so use it. All right, so let's start talking about the kinds of fraud that we are seeing right now in our industry. I think what I am going to start out with here is something that all of you guys have heard about to some extent or another, which is the devastating email-borne wire fraud that we're seeing. What happens here? A hacker will break into the email account, or in some cases the transaction management account, of someone who is going to be involved in a real estate transaction. And they don't do anything at first. They just sit quietly and gather information about an upcoming transaction. Then at the last minute, they send a well-timed email to the buyer just before the deal closes. It is extremely convincing. It really looks to be from a player in the transaction, the real estate agent, the attorney, or some other trusted participant. The email claims that there has been a last-minute change to the wiring instructions. Because this email is so convincing, the buyer believes it, wires the money, very often the down payment, to the criminal. The criminal empties their account and disappears forever into the ether along with the money. This is happening all the time. So what do we do in terms of damage control if a transaction has been hit? First, immediately, the buyer should contact the financial institutions that have been involved, contact the local FBI. This is key. And you need to know a number. You need to know the number 72 hours. The FBI says that there's about a 72-hour window between the time the money has been sent onwards when there is a chance that that money can be recovered. After 72 hours, the chances dip drastically. So contact the local FBI. In addition, if a hack has been used in creating this fraud, the hacked entity should change all passwords, run antivirus, talk to your IT consultant to make sure that that hacker is out of the system. Everybody should also review their insurance policies and contact your insurance companies as appropriate. Better yet, don't let it happen at all. Let's talk about prevention now. What do you do to prevent wire fraud? Best practices. First, and probably most importantly, is to communicate and educate from day one, before a transaction happens. Warn all parties, warn your new clients, preferably in writing, to be suspicious of wiring information sent via email. Consider implementing a standard warning notice as part of your practice, saying, this is what's happening. Have them sign it and save that signed document. You can also incorporate it into, for example, listing agreements. Real estate agents and brokers should also, whenever possible, if it fits within your business model, avoid handling the disposition of funds. Buyers should also always call the intended recipient of wired funds immediately prior to making any wire. Verify those numbers line by line, and when that call is made, make sure the buyer needs to be using an independently verified phone number. These hackers are spoofing the signature blocks in their emails, and so there have been cases where a phone number has been called and the hacker is spoken with, and the hacker verifies those wiring instructions. So key here also is to develop security-conscious email and password practices, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. How do you secure your email account? First of all, let's talk about how a hacker actually gets into these email accounts in the first place. The hacker will send an email with an infected attachment or a link. You click on that link or that attachment. Again, these emails look convincing, and it will install password cracking malware. A hacker can also send an email with a link to a mock-up of your transaction management platform or your email login page, where you then enter your login credentials, and they then are able to see what those login credentials are. Hackers are also very often exploiting shoddy email password practices and weak password practices by guesswork. For example, please, 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 for the love that is all good, do not use the password. People are still doing that. And through online research, if you don't have, for example, your Facebook security settings appropriately set, and your password involves your nephew's birthday, your 4-year-old nephew's birthday, and you post a picture saying, "Happy 4th birthday, Jimmy," you may very well have just given away your password. Be cognizant of all of your security settings. Best email practices. What should we be doing? Check your junk mail and your sent mail folders for anomalies. Once these guys break into the email, they can reset certain rules so that important emails are getting set to your junk mail. Check your account settings, your email account settings. They will change account settings so that important emails are forwarded from your email account to their email account. Check for anything weird in that respect too. Regularly purge your email. Do not use your email as a document repository. Clean out your emails. Store your emails separately. But the more information that you have in your email, the more information is at those hackers' fingertips. Whenever possible, avoid doing business over unsecured Wi-Fi, of course, and practice good password hygiene. What does that mean? A number of things. First of all, use long phrases that make sense to you. The recommendation is 20 characters or more. The whole idea of using a bunch of letters and numbers and exclamation points, that's sort of been put to the side. Long phrases, dinosaur, chocolate cup, Smurf. Phrases that have important meaning to you, but not necessarily the hacker, are actually stronger than all of the mumbo jumbo that we're used to, and it's easier for us to remember as well. Use two-factor or multi-factor authentication whenever it is available. Please don't use the same password for multiple accounts. If they guess one, then they can have all of them. I know all of these things are difficult changes to make, but they're very important. Don't share your password, and never send your password via text or email. Don't store your passwords in an unsecure location. Do not put your passwords on a sticky note and stick it to your computer, and don't store passwords on a computer desktop. So all of that advice is difficult to follow, realistically, right? So a good tool is a password manager. It's a technology that helps you create long, complicated passwords and helps store them securely. We are going to be talking a little bit later about things to consider when you are using IT third-party vendors. So don't just pick the first password manager that comes across your desk. So what else? This is a big one. And people really don't like it when I say this, but whenever possible, avoid sending sensitive or confidential information via standard email. We all are guilty of that. We all use email as a way to send and share information, but it really shouldn't be unless you take very specific precautions. People ask, what are alternatives to standard email then? What am I supposed to do? People ask about faxing. It's problematic. I'm not going to go into detail as to why, but there are definitely better alternatives. What are they? Encrypted email is a great way to protect sensitive information in transit, and a really good document sharing or transaction management platform is a fantastic tool to use. ZipLogix has ZipTMS. This is a member benefit. Please look into this. They are making amazing strides all the time, and it is a fantastic transaction management platform. Keep your login credentials and passwords, no matter what you are doing, secure. You can have the best TMS, the best encryption program, the best password manager ever. You can be implementing all of this technology, but if you are not practicing good password protection, and if you are clicking on things with abandon, then you are going to have all of that great technology and all of those great tools be for naught. So the ultimate rule here really is think before you click. One click and all heck can be unleashed. What do you do? How do you do this? Ask yourself, before you click on anything, is this a trusted email? Is this a trusted source? Hover your mouse arrow over the email address of the sender. Look carefully at what that email address is to make sure that who you think is sending that email is really sending that email. And if something seems at all fishy, do not click on it. So we've been talking about this wire fraud. There are absolutely other scams and traps that are hitting our industry right now. What are they? Referral email scams, for example. Spoofed referral emails, where a real estate professional will receive an email that looks to be from a professional in another state or another area referring a client. It says, here's more information, please click on it. You unleash malware by clicking on any of those attachments. An overpayment scam, where a buyer will send a false overpayment and then demand a refund. These are very often very fast transactions, sometimes overseas. There's a sense of urgency. I just paid $3,000 more than I was supposed to. My grandmother's in the hospital. Please refund this as soon as possible. Check hasn't cleared. You refund the money and it's gone forever. Fake emails, which unleash malware. Text messaging scams, which we've been seeing a lot. Clicking on links in emails, in texts that look convincing can also unleash unleashed malware onto your phone or your tablet. And then ransomware. I'm going to take a minute to go into a little bit more detail about ransomware. Why? In 2017, there was a 250% increase in ransomware attacks. Criminals love ransomware. What is it? It's malware. It is unleashed by a click, and it locks down your system. It encrypts all of your data, all of your systems, and then you have to pay a fee in Bitcoin in order for them to de-encrypt all of your information. It can be devastating. So if you are hit by ransomware, what are some immediate measures to take? First of all, disconnect and power off. Why? Ransomware spreads fast, and it can spread to all of your system unless you cut it off as quickly as possible. Consult with an IT professional to remove the malware, and then you have to decide whether to pay, because while an IT professional may be able to take the malware off of your system, IT professional is probably not going to be able to de-encrypt your stuff. So to pay or not to pay, that is your choice. The FBI says don't pay. As a business professional, very often you just don't have any choice. Also, report to the FBI if you have been hit. Better yet, don't let it happen in the first place. What do we do to prevent and protect ourselves from ransomware? First of all, it is crucial that you keep your operating systems patched and up to date. There was a terrible ransomware attack a few months ago in the spring. It only hit systems that had not taken advantage of a crucial patch that was available a month before the ransomware attack happened. Update when prompted. Everyone who patched when they were supposed to was protected from that ransomware attack back in March. Back up your stuff. That way, even if you are hit by ransomware, you have your stuff, you have your data, you have your critical programs stored offline in a separate secure location, and you have a much easier choice about whether to pay that ransom or not. Make sure always when you are backing up that those files are separate, or else the malware may very well encrypt those backups as well. Segment your IT environment to the extent possible to restrict access to specific programs and data on an as-needed basis. Again, to protect certain areas of your system from the spread of ransomware. And again, I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again before the end of this program, think before you click. So we have been talking about fraud right now. The key takeaway really on cyber fraud prevention is to stay paranoid in a healthy, non-freaking out kind of way, but stay paranoid. The FBI director a few years ago was doing some online banking at home and got an email from his bank. And that email said, "We have been hit by cybercrime, you need to log in and check your login credentials to make sure that your funds are still there. The FBI director clicked on the link in the email, which took him to a login page. He started to enter in his banking credentials when a little FBI red flag went off, and he said, wait a minute, something is amiss here. And indeed it was. It was a malware attempt, an attempt to steal his banking credentials. And he stopped. But he came so close to having his banking credentials stolen that his wife banned him from online banking forever. So if the director of the FBI can click on the wrong thing, so can all of we. We need to stay vigilant. All right, that's fraud. Now let's move on and talk about data protection, because it's not just the extortion, it's not just the direct theft of funds that these guys are after. They are after data. Why? What's the end game for these guys? First of all, they're collecting personally identifiable information. We're going to talk about what that means in a minute. Financial and credit card data for sale on the dark web. This is a very lucrative international business that they're participating in, and they need your data in order to feed that business. And then in some cases, some criminals are simply looking for opportunities to disrupt. So let's talk about what personally identifiable information, or PII, means. It is defined on the state law level. You should all know and understand how your state defines personally identifiable information, because there are things that you need to do to protect PII that's in your system, and I guarantee that you have it in your system. Generally, PII is a person's first name or first initial in conjunction with some other sensitive information. For example, a social security number, or credit card number, or driver's license number, depends on your state law. So know your state laws regarding the handling and transmission of PII. There are often requirements about whether it needs to be encrypted or not, how long you should keep it, how you need to dispose it, for example. You need to know what PII you have in your systems. Take inventory. Protect and dispose of PII properly, and never keep PII longer than you need it. All right, so when it comes to data protection, we really need to take two things into consideration. We need to take the human element into consideration, and we need to take the IT element into consideration. Let's talk about how to leverage the human element to protect data in your systems. First of all, recognize that the humans are very often in-house people that we work with and for and ourselves, often are the source of a breach through a click, through some other lack of security. The good news is that through habit modification and encouraging your staff and your licensees to report breaches, and by staying up to date on the latest scams and malware attempts, you really can change things drastically. You also need to implement and follow appropriate policies in your business. Very often, policies regarding, again, PII and IT security and what to do in the case of a data breach are regulated at the state law level. There are laws that are requiring you to take certain measures and implement certain policies. Again, know your state law, know what your state mandates in terms of policies, but no matter what your state law says, there is a best practice regarding policies. It is a good practice to have a document retention and destruction policy, for example, that says how long you should keep stuff, how you should dispose of stuff. A cyber and data security policy, also known as a written information and security, WIS, written information security policy. A breach notification policy is very often required as well. That says what steps you need to take if you have had a breach, who you need to contact. It's very often required that if you have had a breach and other people's personally identifiable information has been exposed, you have a legal obligation to notify them of that. And there are steps that you have to take in order to do so. So that's a lot of policy implementation. Where do you get started? Use NAR's Data Security and Privacy Toolkit. We just updated this. It's a great resource. It will help you put together those policies. It will help you understand what your state law is. So recognize that. There should be a link up behind me. If not, just ask for it in the comments and we will be able to provide you with that. Also, review the law regularly. Review your state law regularly. States are scrambling to keep up with all of the cybercrime that is happening and make laws that will help businesses protect themselves and to help protect consumers. So know your state law and ensure that your staff and licensees are educated and are actually following any policies that you have implemented. Okay. That was leveraging the human element. Let's talk about leveraging the IT element now. What are some best practices for IT infrastructure? First of all, I said it before when we were talking about ransomware, you have to keep your system patched and up to date. Keep antivirus software up to date. Make sure that you're implementing appropriate firewalls. Keep your operating systems patched. Regularly back up your critical data. Back up your applications, back up your systems. And this is a great practice. Consider conducting, even if it's just once, a voluntary IT audit to determine your weak points. And this not only can help you recognize your weak points, but it can save you money. And I'll tell you a story after I drink some water. A IT consultant who I presented with a few weeks ago told a really impactful story. He went into a company that had just spent thousands and thousands of dollars on all of this really high-tech security protection. And they brought him in and proudly said, "You're not going to find any holes. We have it covered. We just spent all this money on all of these bells and whistles." They said, "Okay, great." They covertly sent an email, the IT consultant covertly sent an email to every staff member in this company. And in a very lightly veiled email said, if you click on the following link, you will unleash malware into your company's system. 40% of those people actually clicked on that link. So this company had spent all of this money on all of this high-tech stuff, and really where they needed to be focused was on re-educating their staff members and focusing on retraining. Conduct an IT audit. Find out where your weak links are. Another point, don't forget your phone. Don't forget your tablet. Beware of malware apps. Research what you are downloading prior to download. Do not give your phone or your tablet to your 5-year-old and let him download the newest games, because those things can be rife with malware. Beware of unsolicited texts with links in them. Beware of pop-ups on your phone that look suspicious. Update your phone just like you do with your systems when updates are available. And just like with your computer, back up your data that is on your phone. Also consider phone data encryption. Your phone may very well have encryption available, and you just need to flip a switch to take advantage of that. All right, I promised before that we were going to talk about considerations when you are bringing third-party IT vendors into your business. What am I referring to here? Cloud storage providers, for example, document sharing platforms, password management application, website and app developers, and there are plenty of other technology providers that you may be using in your business. So the advice here is really do your due diligence before you just hire the first person who walks in your door. Check out the vendor's reputation, check out their security measures, review contracts, including click-through agreements that are online before signing anything, to make sure that those agreements provide you with appropriate warranties about their security measures, appropriate indemnifications if that vendor does something that ends up getting you sued. Make sure that they are going to be covering you for their mistakes. That's what indemnification means. Make sure that there are no unreasonable limitations on vendor liability. If they get you in horrific trouble and your entire system becomes infected because of something that they do, make sure that contract doesn't say that they don't owe you more than $1. Review contracts. And don't be afraid to negotiate whenever it is possible to do so. Cyber insurance. I always get asked about cyber insurance. What is the deal with this? A lot of cyber insurance is really still kind of in Wild West territory. Cyber insurance is a developing product. A lot of insurance companies are still figuring out how to develop good products, how to develop products for our industry specifically. So just do your research. Cyber insurance can be a fantastic additional layer of protection for your business, but don't purchase it without, first of all, reviewing your current policy. See what is covered by your current policy. See what's not covered by your current policy. And ask, when you are researching cyber insurance, about additional products. Ask about social engineering endorsements and crime coverage, because these products can all overlap and provide you with a more holistic protection when it comes to insuring against cybercrime. And then when you're talking to your insurance agent, make sure that you ask about preventative consultation that the insurer may provide and post-breach services. If you do have something awful happen and you do have a terrible breach, ask your insurance provider if they will help you or if they will do training beforehand, because many insurance companies really do focus on pre-breach prevention and post-breach services. Ask about those. And then once you do purchase cyber insurance, make sure to review that policy regularly. Just like cyber criminals are constantly changing their game, those insurance policies may become outdated quickly depending on the next awful thing that's on the radar. So make sure that your insurance policy is keeping up to date with the cyber criminals. All right, so I'm an attorney talking about cybercrime. You're not going to get away without me talking about cybersecurity and the intersection with the law. So even though it is extremely unfair, being the victim of cybercrime may have negative legal implications for you. Laws require you to take certain preventative measures, and if you don't and a breach happens, you could very well not only end up dealing with the reputational damage, but a bunch of legal stuff falling on your head as well. Let's start at the state law level. State laws may very well require, as I mentioned before, implementing certain policies, in-house security policies, breach notification policies. Know what those policies are. In addition, there are going to be state laws requiring notice following a breach involving personally identifiable information. Know all about that. And also be aware that state law is in flux. You have to check back on state law regularly. What happens if you don't follow state law? Fines, action by the state attorney general. You could even face the loss of your real estate license. So that's state law. Then you are also facing private lawsuits. We are seeing a lot of lawsuits start fomenting from, for example, clients who have experienced the loss of their down payment, other loss of information or personally identifiable information. What kinds of lawsuits are we seeing? We're seeing actions for negligence, for failure to implement appropriate IT security, for breach of fiduciary duty, failure to protect your client's assets, and in some cases there have been theories of negligence that are based on a failure to warn about cybercrime. And then we have the federal level. Now, there is no comprehensive federal cybersecurity law specific to real estate at this time. However, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has been charged with protecting consumers from unfair or deceptive commercial practices, and the FTC has determined that unfair and deceptive practices include bad cybersecurity practices. There are really two ways that the FTC looks at this. First is the failure by businesses to provide reasonable protections for PII information in a company's possession and control. And then also failure to comply with your own privacy and security policies, in that is a falsehood that you're putting out to the public. Here's our policy, this is what we will do, and then you don't follow it. So the FTC breathing down your neck, what does that mean? What we have seen from the FTC in terms of settlements include requiring businesses to take remedial measures, fix the security measures that need fixing, audits and reporting requirements, which means the FTC will be breathing down your neck for long periods of time. Nobody wants that. And in addition, we are starting to see the FTC come down with hefty monetary fines for bad security practices. So here is the gist. Cybercrime is completely devastating. 60% of small businesses that are victimized by a successful cybersecurity breach go out of business within 6 months of that breach. That number is staggering. What do we do? What are the key takeaways that I want you to remember? First of all, implement appropriate policies and programs, keep them updated, and enforce them. Educate and empower yourself and your employees and your licensees and your business partners and your clients. Education is key. Keep your security programs and antivirus up to date and patched. What else? Back up crucial data and programs. Stay up to date on the applicable laws. And most of all, don't freak out. It is a lot of information that I just gave. There are a lot of real concerns that come with cybersecurity. But here's the truth. We in the real estate industry are a technology-driven industry. We live in a technology-driven world. All you need to do is evaluate your business's cybersecurity risk and implement reasonable precautions within your budget. Really, when it comes down to it, the best defense here is going to be education. And to that end, the National Association of Realtors has an enormous body of security resources, information resources that we have built to share with you, for you to share with your clients and your licensees. Please use them. Please also consider contacting me with any questions. And I believe now we have come to the end of my period of blathering on, and I hope that there may be a few. We haven't gotten any questions. I have answered all of your questions. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I'm Jessica Edgerton, Associate Counsel with the National Association of Realtors. Thank you so much for joining us today.